So I think you could probably call this kind of a done painting, but I want to show you just a couple more things that I think would make it look cool. So I'll tab back in, and what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to hopefully be able to collapse all of these foreground layers into one layer. I'm going to get rid of these. I don't need them anymore. Okay, so there's the background. Here's the middle foreground. Let me go ahead and put this in there. Let me see what happens if I collapse this layer. Oh, come on. Merge group. That's what I'm. Group layers on group layers, collapse layers. Collapse visible layers. Let's try this. Actually, that worked pretty good. So, now I want to do the same with most of the foreground layers. So select all of these. Let's see if that's all the foreground. It is. So collapse these. Wait. Control Alt S. Okay, now collapse these. Perfect. Control Alt S. And the size of my file just went down a lot. I want a darker, creepier forest. So here's what I'm going to do. First thing, I'm going to start at the back. And with this number 2 layer, could be even, I'm going to duplicate. I'm going to move this down. So I'm going to multiply it so it's a lot darker. And I'll go maybe that much. I'm going to duplicate this layer and multiply it. Oh, and that's looking pretty good. Okay, now I don't want the saturation to be as high, so effects, adjust colors, and I'm just going to leave it at that. So that's okay. Effects, adjust colors. Okay. And now for my middle layer, I'm going to duplicate that and multiply this layer. And it's a little too green, so effects, adjust colors, and I'm going to shift the color a little bit on it. Not quite sure which way yet, but let me reset this. And this might work for the sake of just example. That's a little bit too. You collapse, Control Alt S, and I'm going to collapse these 2 layers. Now I'm going to see something went wrong there. Control Z. It's this is this middle layer doing? So let me adjust the colors down here too. Yeah, that's, I think, more what I was looking for. Yeah, I think that's better. So Control-Alt-S, and I'm going to collapse these two. I've got a couple strays in here, but it doesn't make any difference. So collapse these layers. Here's my top layer. Now I want to darken these a little bit. You can see, because now I've decided to darken everything, I'm getting a little white edge on a couple of these things. Normally that would make me crazy, but I'm not going to worry about it right now. I could fix that up without too much trouble, but I'd rather duplicate this. Multiply, wait. That goes way dark, but in a way I kind of like it. So let me, I think it definitely needs the saturation. And the hue shift. That may be too much, but for what I want to do, this is just a redraw error on my screen. It's nothing really. So I'm going to merge these two. Okay, shift. Merge. Collapse the layers. Control-Alt-S. Now I'm going to go back to my background layer. So turn off the midground so you can see the background. Wait, this is the background layer. So I'm going to merge it down with this one. Control-Alt-S. Let me zoom in, because in the background I want to soften them a little bit. So Effects, Soften, and I want to push them back just by making sure their edges are not too obvious. So 4 is probably enough. Okay, and I want to do the same with the midground layer. Not quite as much. Soften. And 4 is too much. So maybe 3. Yeah, maybe it needs a little more. Preview. 3. Oh, I think that's okay. And maybe just a touch on this one. Effects, Soften. It'll help get rid of those little edges. Let's go down to 1. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is on a middle layer behind these trees, I'm going to put in some God rays coming in, like light shining through the trees. I'm just double checking. Control-Alt-S. And to do this, it's pretty easy. Let me close the paper texture. And I'm going to use on a new layer the polygonal selection tool. So come up here. And I'm going to start here and draw some big triangular but varying them as far as width goes, because of course they're shining through leaves. There, so that's my selection. I'm going to feather this selection. And where is that feather selection? Feather. I'm going to go for 10 pixels. That may be too much. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and I'm going to get an airbrush. I could do this with a gradient also. So I'm just going to do it with an airbrush. I think it's easier right now. Big airbrush. Want to use kind of a lighter color. And just paint it like light shining through here. So Control D, see how soft it is. I think that for the most part works really well. I want to reselect, and I'm going to use splatter airbrush, and I'm going to add some like dust motes in here. But I want to do it on a new layer so I can adjust it if I want. Let's try sprinkle. That's a little bit better. Increase the flow. Okay, if that's what I like, then I'm going to merge them together. I'm going to lower the opacity on this just a little bit on both of them because they feel a little opaque to me. And this back layer, I think maybe I ought to blur a little bit. So effects, soften. Just depends on what you want. Control Alt S, select these two, collapse them, and we'll leave it like that. And then I want to, just for fun, show you one more thing. Save it again. I'm going to use one of these particle brushes. And which one do I want to use? Thick. I don't know, so I'm just checking this out. Ooh, sparkle. No. Okay, spongy, grainy, soft bristle. Let's try these. Furry, enhance. That's the one I want. Smoky chain. Let's add some ground fog in here. Control Z. So a new layer. And I could, smoky nucleus might work too. So that'll work. Let's make it a little bigger. And I think that's okay, and a little bit above it. So okay, and on top of it, plus. I don't like that too much. Okay, so this one, It'll look better if it will be behind the trees, of course. And effects. Soften. And depending on how foggy you want it to be, add some in front. You could on top, and I don't know what that layer is, so I'm going to use it. Say you wanted it you definitely wouldn't want too much. Effects, soften. Okay, and I'd probably move them up. They look a little too obvious and contrived right there. Maybe they just need lower opacity. And so there you get some God rays and some smoke in here. Another thing you might want to do, and I'm going to get rid of that. So I'm going to do a Control-Alt-S, and now I'm going to select everything, and I'm going to drop everything. Brand new image now. Control-Alt-S. This is the final. Control-A, Control-C, Control-V, Control-Z, Control-A, Control-C, Control-V. Good. That's what I wanted right here. I'm going to multiply it, but ever just so slightly. Maybe I'm not. Now this is what I'm going to do. Back to the normal. Every once in a while I do this because I like the way it makes things work, but tonal control, I'm going to apply lighting. And it comes up with some defaults, and this isn't the easiest lighting to use, but it's not too bad. So you move these little doohickeys around to change the color of things. If you want to add another one, you click, but then I don't, so I'm going to backspace it or delete it. So let me go back to, there's a number of them in here. I'm just going to go with splashy colors. It's one I like a lot to use. And click OK. So you can see it's kind of changed the overall feel of this. I know I might switch this to screen. Nope. Let me undo this. Control Z. Okay, so here it is. It's default. Nope. There, it's undone now, so it looks just like the underline. I'm going to come up and effects. I'm going to tonal control lighten this first. So brightness and contrast. This may work on the first shot, it may not. Okay, now I'm going to come under effects and apply lighting. And what I'm going to do is just leave it default but lower lower the opacity so I can get a little bit of a feeling of some color variation going around. Now it makes it pretty dark down here, so what you might consider doing is coming in with a nice big soft eraser. And it's just really subtle, but it's lightening just a little bit of this front layer. You can see it up in the area there. Then collapse, drop this layer, Control-Alt-S, and drop that. And then the last thing I'm going to do is zoom in here to 100%. Now, understand this is just the most basic kind of feel on how to do this. I'm going to save this. Iterative save. 31, and I'm going to close it. And I'm going to go back into Photoshop. Here's the last one. Because it's not the right open. Oh, this is great. What did I do wrong? Oh, that's a RIF file. Duh. Okay, come back. File. Save as. PSD. Now I can go out of here. File, open. There we go. And I am going to duplicate this, duplicate the layer. Okay, I am going to multiply it, but I'm going to lower it a lot. Maybe I don't need to. What I will sometimes do is do this and then get really big eraser. Really, really big. Kind of low opacity. Whoops. Kind of erase out the center of the image, so you can see I've done it there. And so it just leaves slight little halo around it. Drop that. File. Save as, in case I don't like it. 32. And drop it. Merge down, flatten image. And then what I kind of like to do is this. I'm going to duplicate it again on this top layer. I will do filter, noise, add noise. That's too much. About 3 usually is 2 or 3. And I like the Gaussian a little better than uniform, but you can use whatever you want. And I like this because it kind of softens any errors that I might have. But first I'm going to filter, blur, Gaussian blur. Now I'm going to add the noise. Filter, noise, add noise. 3, 2, okay. And so with this on here, I'm going to lower the opacity of this layer just a little bit. So I can just start to see the noise, but I see the sharp image come through. Why I like that, I don't know. So I'm going to save as 33 and merge the layer down. And there's the final. So let me file. I'll export this. Quick export as ping. That'll work. And that is all there is to it. So there you go. Guess it was a lot more work than I thought it would be, but it is kind of fun. So have fun doing it.